Oleg Merkulov, Business Baltia Media Group from Latvia. So, Vladimir Vladimirovich, first question is, thank you for a brilliant movie. And the question is, what was Boris Nemtsov's position on the issue of discrimination of Russian-speaking population in Latvia after the breakup of the Soviet Union in regards with citizenship and language? And by the way, what is the position, current position of your party on the same issue? Has it changed a lot? And Senator McCain, if I may use this opportunity to ask this question, you've been to Riga many times, and you probably noticed that a lot of people in everyday life, they use Russian language, about 65% in Riga and 40% in Latvia itself, but Russian language doesn't have any status, so it's equalized with Japanese and Amharic. And about a few hundred, 200,000-300,000 people do not have citizenship. Even kids who born in Latvia do not have it. And I would like to hear your comments about it too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I go first?
Yeah, why don't you go?
Oleg, first of all, good to see you. We usually see each other in church, but it's good to see you here. I actually just came back from a conference in Tallinn, in Estonia, 2 days ago. There was a week-long series of events because Estonia holds the European Union presidency, so there were several parliamentary meetings. And I must say that the first time I went to the Baltic states was about 10 years ago, a little more. And I don't consider myself as someone who is particularly brainwashed by Putin's propaganda. I hope that I'm more informed than this. But I must say that even I, when I went to it was Riga and Tallinn back then, even I was a little hesitant to speak Russian when I was in Riga and in Tallinn, because I was thinking there'll be some consequences for me, or I'll be punished, or there'll be something bad will happen. This is such baloney. This is what they tell you in Putin's TV. If you watch Channel 1 and Russia 1, they'll tell you that if you speak Russian on the streets of Riga and Tallinn, you'll be shot or something. Well, I go pretty often to the Baltic states. I always speak Russian and never have any problems. And of course, the situation is different even officially in the Baltic states, because, for example, Lithuania, thanks to its first post-independence president, Vytautas Landsbergis, and thanks to Member of Parliament minorities Zingeris, who's with us here this evening, wrote a law that granted, first of all, automatic citizenship to everybody, which they did back in 1991, is that correct, in the autumn? And needless to say, in Lithuania too, although the proportion of Russians in Lithuania is smallest of all the Baltic states, I have certainly no trouble and no problem speaking Russian when I'm in Vilnius, the same way I'm in Tallinn or Riga. So, and I know Boris Nemtsov always liked very much to go to the Baltic states. He was in Vilnius, he was in Riga, he was in Tallinn many times. He never missed the Leonard Meri conference, which takes place every spring in Tallinn and brings together a lot of policymakers from around the world. He always loved going there. And in fact, in March of 2015, we were supposed to go together with him to Vilnius for the 25th anniversary of the restoration of Lithuanian independence. There was a meeting at the Lithuanian parliament, which Emanuelis Zingeris hosted, and we were supposed to fly with him, I think it was on the 10th or 11th of March. And of course, he was killed on the 27th of February, and I believe he had a video message from him when he was already no longer there. So, again, every time I go to the Baltic states, I certainly speak Russian, and I never have any problems with it.
I didn't quite get the question.
The status of Russian language in the Baltic states.
The Russian language, as you know, varies with each of the three little countries, and it's probably more prevalent in Lithuania than any place else. But there's a history there, and I worry about the Russian pressures on the three Baltic states. But there's a strong feeling of nationalism in all three of those countries. I can remember as a small boy seeing the 4th of July parade, the captive nations flag. And their allegiance to their country, I believe, even if as many as 30% or more speak Russian, they have no allegiance to Russia. And the pressures that the Russians and Vladimir Putin are putting on these three beautiful little countries, I think in the long run alienates the Russian speakers from Russia and Russian influence than attracts. And again, I think that because they were able to start from scratch, they are doing very well. And when the country economically is doing well, they're certainly not interested in being under the influence of the Russian system. Frankly, I worry more about what's happening in a country like Hungary today, where they're seeing a consolidation of power into the hands of one individual and repression of rights. And I, of course, worry about the traditional place where so many wars have started, and that's the Balkans. I went through the Balkans, and I think that some of them are doing well, others not so well. And you see penetration not only of Russia, but also of some rather radical Islamic elements as well.
I just want to add very quickly that on the same point, for many years when I was meeting with political leaders from the Baltic states, I would always say to them that I think it's very important that you develop the media in your countries, the news media, in the Russian language, because if you don't do this, you're just ceding the ground to Putin's propaganda, because then all people will have to watch his Channel 1 or Russia 1. And if you're not doing it, then he will. And I'm very happy to see that in recent years, literally in the last 2 or 3 years, certainly Latvia and Estonia have moved to actually open national public broadcasting in the Russian language. And when I was in Tallinn a few days ago, I was actually live on a television show on an Estonian national public broadcaster in Russian. And we had, because I had the screening of the same film in Tallinn, and then there was a program about it. And in the same way in Latvia recently, I think it's called LV1 or LV2, one of the national TV channels, which is in Russian too, and we had a whole broadcast there. And I think it's very important, and I cannot emphasize the importance of this enough. This goes for actually not just the Baltic states, but particularly the Baltic states. If you don't do, because all normal people want to watch news in their own language. That's normal. So if you don't do it in Russian, Putin will. And you have to give people the choice. And I'm very happy to see that all the Baltic states are moving to this direction. In fact, in Lithuania, when we were just in May for the Lithuanian Foreign Ministry Russia Forum, we were also took part in a show, live show on Lithuanian national TV, the same television center that was attacked by Soviet tanks in January of 1991. And again, there was a whole hour-long program in the Russian language. And I think this is very important to do. Russian language was not invented by Putin, just as it was not invented by Stalin.
And
it's a beautiful language with a long history and culture, and I'm happy to see many more media outlets in the Baltic states use it.
We're over-answering, but one of the great factors in winning Cold War was Radio Free Europe, and that has fallen down with disarray for a whole lot of reasons. But just in the last couple of years, we've started to realize the importance of it and really do a much better job of sending that message through the Radio Free Europe.
And the fact that they're speaking Russian freely has an influence in Russia, I'm sure.